Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. We've got some interesting stuff to unpack today. We're going to be taking a closer look at Aditya Vision Ltd.
Oh, yeah, they're fascinating.
They're a consumer durables retailer, primarily operating in India, in a few states there, Bihar, Jharkhand, and Uttar Pradesh.
A lot of growth potential there.
Yeah, you guys have sent in some interesting sources about their business model and future prospects, their expansion strategy, and even some potential risks. So
I'm excited to dive in.
yeah, let's unpack these details together with the help of our resident expert here in business analysis.
Always happy to lend my perspective. So Aditya Vision, it's really interesting how they've kind of carved out this niche for themselves. They're not actually manufacturing products. They operate a chain of retail stores where they sell a variety of branded consumer durables. So you're talking everything from refrigerators, air conditioners, to washing machines, televisions, the whole works.
So they're curating a selection of well-known brands and bringing those directly to customers in these specific regions.
That's exactly it. I mean, their expertise really lies in understanding that local demand, providing excellent customer service, and just creating a shopping experience that really clicks with their target market.
And speaking of understanding the market, Aditya Vision's leadership sounded really optimistic about future growth in their recent earnings call. They seem particularly excited about their expansion into Uttar Pradesh.
Right, and there are a couple of key reasons for that. First off, Uttar Pradesh is a densely populated region, really hot climate, so obviously
perfect for the product mix, right?
Exactly. Ideal conditions for selling those cooling products like refrigerators, AC units. And then second, they're banking on a big boost in consumer spending due to, you've probably heard of the Kumbh Mela.
Oh, of the massive religious gathering.
Exactly. Happens to be taking place in Uttar Pradesh this year, so.
Millions of visitors expect.
Millions. Yeah, huge potential there for increased sale. I mean, for any business, but certainly for Aditya Vision.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I'm curious because their earnings call also mentioned that January was a slow month sales-wise. So is that a bit counterintuitive given all this optimism?
That's a sharp observation, but there's a strategic reason for that. Okay, so they've actually been building up their inventory since December, getting ready specifically for that summer season and, anticipating that influx of visitors during Kumbh Mela, expecting a surge in demand for those cooling products as the weather heats up.
So they're playing the long game here.
They are.
Strategically managing their inventory to meet that anticipated demand, not just reacting to the current trends.
Exactly. Shows a real understanding of the market dynamics, and that proactive approach.
Now let's talk about store additions because they are on an ambitious expansion kick. They're currently operating 167 stores, and they've already exceeded their initial target of opening 22 new stores just this fiscal year.
Yeah, they're aiming to open another, 8 to 10 stores before the fiscal year ends.
Wow.
And they're projecting to hit a total of 200 stores by next year. It's rapid expansion.
And those new stores are going in both existing territories like Bihar, where they're seeing strong demand that justifies having, second stores in some districts, and of course, new markets within Uttar Pradesh.
Yeah, got to capitalize on that growth opportunity.
They're going for it. But as with any rapid expansion, there are inherent risks.
Yeah.
And one that kind of stood out to me in their earnings call was the potential impact of all these new stores on their operating costs.
Yeah.
They did mention experiencing, at least temporarily, a rise in operating expenses due to the large number of recently opened what they called immature stores.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that? What is an immature store and how does that impact profitability?
Sure. Essentially, an immature store is a new store that hasn't hit its full stride yet in terms of sales.
Okay.
So it's generating expenses, of course, but the revenue hasn't quite caught up yet.
So it's a short-term investment where you're putting in those resources and you're not seeing the full return right away.
You got it. And Aditya Vision is definitely betting that these new stores will pay off, that they'll contribute significantly to both their top-line revenue and bottom-line profit. But until then, it does put a little pressure on their overall profitability margins.
So that's a key risk factor to watch closely as we assess their growth trajectory.
Absolutely. You want to see how effectively they manage those operating expenses and really transition those new stores into profit centers.
Okay, so let's recap for a minute. We've covered their business model, their optimistic future outlook, driven in part by that expansion into Uttar Pradesh and the upcoming Kumbh Mela, and their ambitious store addition strategy.
Right, and we've touched on that key risk they've identified, which is that potential impact of rapid expansion and the operating expenses that come with those immature stores. It's a balancing act for sure.
Managing that growth while ensuring profitability. Now, for you listening, these are all, crucial factors to consider as you evaluate Aditya Vision's prospects. It's a story of ambition, calculated risks, and, a keen understanding of the Indian market.
Yeah.
But as we all know, no business operates in a vacuum. There are always those external factors at play that can influence their performance.
Absolutely. And one big one that we need to consider is the broader economic environment in India, particularly, what's been happening with inflation and interest rates.
Right, because those macroeconomic factors can certainly impact consumer spending, which could have a direct effect on Aditya Vision sales, especially as they open all these new stores.
Yeah.
If consumers are tightening their belts, discretionary spending on durables is usually one of the first areas to be affected.
Exactly. Even though they're operating in a region with, high growth potential, they're not immune to those broader economic forces.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even the most well-planned business strategies need to be adaptable and responsive to changes in that economic landscape.
For sure. And speaking of adaptability, there's another big external factor looming that we need to talk about. The rise of e-commerce in India.
Yeah, the elephant in the room.
Right. Online shopping has exploded in India, and it's a trend no retailer can ignore.
But Aditya Vision seems laser-focused on expanding that brick-and-mortar presence. So are they overlooking the potential of e-commerce? Could this be a blind spot in their strategy?
It's the million-dollar question, and it's one we'll explore in detail in just a moment. They've built their success on creating a really compelling in-person shopping experience.
They've mastered that art of understanding the local demand and, providing that personalized service. But e-commerce is changing the retail landscape so dramatically. Can they translate that expertise to the digital world?
That's the challenge, isn't it? You think about their strengths, their knowledgeable staff, their carefully curated product selection, that focus on customer service. It's hard to replicate that online.
It makes you wonder if they're putting all their eggs in one basket by solely focusing on those physical stores. Could this be a blind spot, especially with the explosive growth we're seeing in e-commerce in India?
That's the big question a lot of investors. This proven track record.
Yeah, they've delivered impressive growth. They know their market.
But on the other hand, ignoring the e-commerce trend, that's a risky move. It's that classic dilemma, right? Sticking with what works versus adapting to a changing landscape.
So are we saying they need to completely overhaul their business model and just dive headfirst into e-commerce?
Not necessarily. I think there are ways to blend the physical and digital worlds. Explore things like click and collect.
Where customers order online and pick up in store.
Right, or even develop some kind of hybrid model that combines the best of both.
That makes a lot of sense. Leveraging their existing strengths while still tapping into that growing online market. It's a way to cater to those different customer preferences and really stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly. And yet, for those of you listening, how Aditya Vision chooses to respond to this rise of e-commerce, that's something to watch closely. Will they adapt and evolve? Or are they going to double down on that traditional approach? Those decisions they make over the next few years, they could have a big impact on their long-term success.
Yeah, it's a fascinating case study. A company at a crossroads. Exciting opportunities, but also some significant challenges. But they've shown they can adapt. Think about how they anticipated that surge in demand for the summer and built up their inventory.
That's a good point. Shows foresight, flexibility. And their expansion into Uttar Pradesh timed with Kumbh Mela, that strategic thinking, seizing an opportunity.
So it's too early to say if they'll fully embrace e-commerce or stick to their brick-and-mortar roots. But one thing is for sure.
They're a company to watch.
Absolutely. They're playing a high-stakes game, and the next chapter of their story is going to be really interesting. This deep dive has given you a solid foundation, I think, for understanding their business model, their growth strategy, the risks they're facing, and maybe some potential opportunities, too.
Yeah, we've covered their focus on specific geographic regions, the potential impact of those macroeconomic factors, and, of course, that e-commerce question mark.
But this is just the starting point for you guys. You want to keep a close eye on their financial performance, the STO additions, and how they address or don't address that e-commerce challenge. Staying informed is key as you make your own investment decisions.
Couldn't agree more.
And on that note, here's a final thought-provoking question as you continue your research. We've talked about the risks of them, missing out on e-commerce.
Right, potentially missing out on a significant market segment.
But could there be a flip side to this? What if, instead of competing directly with these online giants, They double down on what they do best, creating a truly exceptional in-person shopping experience.
Ooh, that's an interesting thought. So are you suggesting like creating a retail haven? Something that draws customers away from that impersonal online world.
Exactly. Imagine an experience so compelling, so service-oriented, so personalized that it actually lures customers back to the physical stores.
It would take something special, something that goes above and beyond what you can get online.
Think personalized consultations, exclusive product launches, in-store events, just that level of customer service you can't get online.
It would be a gamble, for sure.
It would.
But in a world dominated by digital interactions, maybe there is that growing desire for human connection, for those personalized experiences. Something only a physical store can provide.
Could Aditya Vision be a leader in this? Could they create that kind of retail sanctuary that's about community, connection, as much as it is about buying products? Only time will tell. But it just highlights how even in the face of disruption, there's always room for innovation, for creative thinking. It really comes down to differentiation, doesn't it?
Yeah. Can they offer something that online retailers just can't? That's the question.
It's about creating that destination, that place where people want to be, not just to buy, but for the experience.
You think about the Apple stores, they're iconic, not just for the products, but the whole experience they offer. Could Aditya Vision pull off something similar? Something tailored to their market and their customer base?
It would be a challenge, of course.
Yeah.
But if anyone can do it, it might be a company with their understanding of the Indian consumer and their knack for anticipating trends.
Right. I mean, they're already doing well in areas like customer service,
Right.
creating that welcoming environment.
Imagine if they took that up a notch, offered expert advice, tailored recommendations, maybe even in-store demos or workshops.
Yeah, adding value beyond just the transaction,
Yeah.
making customers feel valued, understood.
It's like, buying a book online versus browsing in a cozy bookstore where the staff knows you and can give you recommendations. That human touch that's often missing online.
Exactly. It's creating that sense of community, a place where people can connect, share their interests. They could host events or workshops related to the products they sell even.
Now you're talking. Imagine a cooking class in a store that sells, high-end kitchen appliances.
Yeah.
Or a home decor workshop with the latest furniture trends.
That's a great idea. It creates excitement, engagement, something you can't get from clicking a button.
So while e-commerce presents these challenges, it also opens up possibilities, forces companies like Aditya Vision to get creative, think outside the box to differentiate themselves.
And at the end of the day, that's good for the consumer too.
More choices.
Yeah, exactly. More choices encourages companies to step up their game.
Well, there you have it. We've explored Aditya Vision's business model, their growth strategy, the risks they're facing, and even some potential opportunities they could capitalize on.
It's been a really fascinating deep dive. Hopefully all you listeners out there feel well equipped to, continue your research and draw your own conclusions.
Remember, investing is all about understanding the story behind the numbers. And Aditya Vision's story is one of ambition, innovation, and a deep connection with their customers.
And it's a story that's still being written, so it'll be interesting to see what happens next.
Keep an eye on this dynamic company. Who knows? Maybe they'll be the ones to rewrite the rules of retail in the digital age. Until next time, happy diving.